Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the Next Move podcast. This is a podcast where we're essentially going to interview people who are making a change in India, whether it be through starting businesses or whether it be through creating organizations that work toward a more equitable society in India. We are getting into the minds of them in this podcast. So if you're looking for a podcast that takes you into the minds of some of the movers and shakers in India, then look no further because this podcast will definitely do that. To episode 2 of the podcast, and today we have Rahm Shastry with us. And Rahm is the CEO and co-founder of DriveU. Now, DriveU is a company that matches personal and qualified drivers to your vehicle. And DriveU has exploded over the last year. They're reaching almost 2 million rides. They've almost hit that number. And Rahm is a successful entrepreneur who moved from Silicon Valley, where he had started a few startups that got eventually acquired. And he eventually moved back to India to make an impact in his home country. And when he first moved back, he invested in TaxiForSure as the first investor. It's a similar company to that of Ola and Uber, and it got sold to Ola for $200 million. So he got a great exit there. And in this podcast, I learned so much. Rahm as I mentioned, he's a serial entrepreneur, and as he's done it so many times, he's started so many new companies, and he's even had a company that's failed, which he will go into in the podcast. He will tell you about what makes a good startup. What do you need? How do you assess whether you have product market fit? And the other key takeaway that I took from this podcast is that Rahm really goes into how you go about starting a market. Because DriveU is doing something that nobody else is doing. Ola and Uber provide you the cars and the vehicle, but DriveU just provides you the personalized driver for your vehicle. So he really goes into how do you educate a market? How do you educate the drivers? How do you educate the customers when you're starting something completely new? So I think you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn about how to potentially start a business, how to overcome challenges that you're going to face along the way. And yeah, I learned a lot from this podcast. I really enjoyed our discussion. So sit back, relax, and listen in today.
Thank you, Arman. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
So Ram, could you expand a little bit on who you are, what you do, what's your background?
Sure. So I was actually born in Bangalore, brought up in Bangalore, and I went to school in National Institute of Technology in Surathkal on the west coast of India. Then
Okay.
after I did my bachelor's in electronics and communications, and to do my master's, I went over to the U.S. I did my master's in computer engineering from Stony Brook University in New York, and then I was at that time I was doing chip design, VLSI chip design. I honed in on that for a few years, and then I thought my talent was beyond designing, so I moved into sales and marketing. I went into a software company called Viewlogic back in the late 80s,
Okay.
and gradually migrated to actually Silicon Valley because that's where the action is in the
Correct.
U.S. So I've been in Silicon Valley for about 25 years, working in large corporations as well as founded a couple of companies and became CEO of a couple of other companies. So that is my background before Destiny brought me back to India in 2015. So
Great.
to start DriveU, yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. And I just want to expand a little bit about your time in the US because, it seems like it was very pivotal to your eventual, success and of starting DriveU and of investing in Taxi for sure. So I wanted to know about, what are some of these companies that you founded when you were in the US, and what did they do? Were they successful? Did you have any failures there? And how did you overcome if there were any failures?
Yeah, I mean, my first company I founded in 1995 called TriQuest. Three of us quit our day jobs and went and started a company called TriQuest.
Okay.
We didn't have any money. We went and said we got to go build this something in a software solution for a chip design company. And in 2 years later, we got funded afterwards. And then 2 years later, we sold that company to a large company, which is now part of a company called Mentor Graphics for a nominal $10 million. It wasn't a big exit, but the investment in was about 2 million, and we sold the company for 10 million. So that was a good exit for us in 1997. That was my first exit in a startup world. Then I
Okay.
joined. Then I joined the company called Cadence Design, which is a huge. It's like a multi-billion-dollar company based in San Jose. I was a director of marketing and so on. And then again in 2001, one of the a major VC and individual investor called Prabhu Goyal called me and said, "Hey, I have a company here which is right after the dot-com crash, that needs some help. Somebody like you to come and help me out." And
Okay.
that's where I came in to a company called Tata Systems, and I was the CEO. We had some great run, and then we sold the company to again a French company in 2006.
Okay.
And so that was a couple of reasonable exits. And my so I, in between, I mean, after that, I was in a startup called Necentric in Austin, Texas. I used to commute to Austin from California. That
Okay.
company didn't go well. We had good technology, but our competitors were very, very strong, big startups, big companies. So that we fundamentally we sold it as asset sale to big, large companies in 2009 timeframe. So that was my, if you ask me, my failure. And then I had an amazing success in another startup where I was brought in to, and actually within a matter of 6 months, we actually sold and turned around the company and sold it to a large company called Cadence again.
Wow.
So that was a very good exit for us. So anyway, so there is the batting average is, as they say in baseball, I mean, we are a 50-50 batting average. So I probably have involved in 4 or 5 startups until now as a CEO or as an investor, of course, for TaxiForSure, about six
Uh-huh.
six companies, and probably 3 or 4 of them have been reasonably successful. And of course, the big exit was the TaxiForSure, which we sold it to Ola in 2015. So, I mean, the lessons we learn is, which I'm very, very. One thing is the biggest lesson is the product market fit.
Okay.
If the thing is you have an idea, of course you're always biased to your own ideas. So the question is this idea relevant? Is somebody willing to pay for the idea that you have, or the product that you build, or a service that you build? And are they, can you make money by selling lots of those products, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in a startup, it's pretty exciting that you come with an idea which is unique and everything. But the point will be, can you sell? Can you sell profitably? So
Okay.
that's a big thing I learned, is that sometimes it didn't. Sometimes and sometimes it's also serendipitous because um, the competitive environment has changed, or the market itself is a tough spot. So many things can happen in a startup. That's the exciting thing about a startup. There is no
Yep.
guarantee. There is no guarantee. But along the way, the most important thing is always keep an open mind and keep learning. Don't get too excited with your own ideas, seduced by your own ideas.
So I think that's a great point. And as you mentioned, almost 4 out of 6 of the
Mhm.
startups that you've been in have been successful, which if you look at the numbers, that's much higher than most people have with startups, because the amount of competition that's out there, the amount of odds that are against you when you're doing that. So 4 out of 6 is very successful. And just going over to your point about product market fit, how does an entrepreneur actually evaluate product market fit? Because let's say I'm starting this company and I think, okay, people need this because I feel I need it. How do I, effectively go out and actually test this? Can you do it through research, or do you have to actually start to go ahead and do this?
So that's a very good question. The way, first of all, you may have a unique idea and you might even have patents on it, and you believe it because you yourself see the need for it. That's great. Then what you have to do is, are you unique in the need of that product, or are there tens and hundreds and thousands and millions of people out there who want that product like you have?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And then the question to figure out is, how much does it help for that person who adopts your product? In the sense, um, so a product will cost X dollars, and it should have enough value to be at least 2x or 3x or 5x for the person who adopts that product. In the sense, in terms of maybe they improve their efficiency of their process or flow, or maybe there is something like that never existed, or they have they by using your product or service, they will now create a completely new market for themselves. Now, I mean, it's a very tough thing, but we have to be as entrepreneurs, to be very honest with ourselves. So how do you become what you do have to do is you got to go look at your customers, and who is your
Okay.
prospective customer, and talk to them. Tell them. I mean, everybody will say, "Oh, I like it. It's great."
Uh-huh.
But the
Uh-huh.
question is, are you willing to pay for it? Are you willing to pay Y dollars, which is greater than X dollars, right? That costs you to
Right.
build that product. So first you have to figure out how much does it cost for you, X dollars. And the question would be, how much is customer willing to pay Y dollars? Now,
Uh-huh.
tens and hundreds and thousands of millions of such Ys will make your product a lot more, make your company more profitable, right? And that is the
Yeah.
key. That's the key thing. I always say, don't get seduced by your own ideas and then your product. Always be very um, open to criticize your own ideas, because at the end of the day, if you don't criticize your own idea, somebody else will.
Yeah.
And until then you have to go make some changes. So it's better off to do it very brutally honest, and that's a tough one. It takes a lot of experience in figuring out, or being we are emotionally attached to our ideas and our product,
Yeah.
and it's your baby. Okay, so nobody can tell your baby is ugly, right?
Yeah, that's true.
People don't want to hear that your baby is ugly. Okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes you got to say, tell me, is my baby ugly? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what you got to do. That's one thing very important, I think.
So I think that's a great point, but and that's a very rational view in comparison to, some of what people talk about, other CEOs, other executives. It's always about perseverance. It's always about, if it's not working, keep working at it, and until it's successful. But, how does one know when something is a dud and something where your baby is ugly and you got to
Mhm.
just stop? How would an entrepreneur know that point?
That's a that's again an extremely important. I'll give you from my experience. Okay.
Okay.
2000, I started a company in the mobile space, for mobile enterprise.
Okay.
It was 3G was just coming up in the US.
Okay.
And the whole idea was the corporate data can be, the sales guys can look at the corporate data in the field and be able to do all sorts of stuff, and so on. So I thought it was a great idea. We built a prototype, and I had raised some small amount of money, seed fund, and then went to the market. And Cisco was very interested in evaluating our product. The team was very excited; they wanted to do that. So
Okay.
then everything was going well, and suddenly the market collapsed. The dot-com crash happened,
Uh-huh.
and people, companies were laying off left and right, and the team that we were working with got laid off. So we didn't have a champion within Cisco. Cisco was my only client at the moment, and then I said, okay, I give myself end of March 31st, and if I am not able to get another one or two beta sites, then I'm going to shut this company down because I'm not
Okay.
going to keep on doing it. It was tough. I tried everything because I had this 6 month or maybe 4 months timeline, and we tried
Correct.
hard as a team. And at that point, nothing happened. I said, you know what, that's it, guys. Like I said, serendipity, sometimes it's also the bad timing.
Mm-hmm.
Timing is
Yeah.
a very important factor. So you may have a great idea, but if your timing is not right, you can do all you want. You can be tenacious, you can work hard, you can work 18 hours a day. Doesn't,
Correct.
and I think it's not fair to tell people keep on trying, because you have to say, to be very, again, this comes back to being honest with yourself and say, all right, you know what, guys, great idea, bad timing, and let me just I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to sound like a loser, but
Uh-huh.
it's being practical. At some point you have to say, I'm going to shut it down, you know
Yeah.
uh, right.
Yeah, yeah, it completely. And I feel like that is probably a really tough part for entrepreneurs to say, like, look, this didn't work for whatever reason. We
Yes.
have to be practical here. We're just wasting time at this point. Let's
Yes.
move on to another thing.
Yes, yes, absolutely, and that is very hard because we love our idea,
Exactly.
and everybody, and then you have actually invested so much time. You may have quit your job, and you have a social pressure.
Exactly.
Oh my God, I'll be a big failure if I now quit now. At some point, you have to come out, and say, I mean, it's okay. Keep on. Maybe there is something else you can do for yourself, and maybe there is some other place, some other time you can do something else. And it's not being not tenacious. It's just being practical. In terms of, okay,
Exactly.
looking at the thing. Okay, this is. I mean, did I feel like that sometimes during DriveU? Absolutely. It wasn't a bed of roses when we started a company. I will talk about
Uh-huh.
that, but I'm just saying, there are moments where even a company that is successful in the eye of the world, the only the founders and the know what does it take to get there. It could be not having some talent leaving at the wrong time, not having enough money to make the payroll, whatever. There is all those
Right.
things. Yeah,
That's definitely a very delicate decision for when to evaluate problems where saying this is a potential success, we have potential success, or we should, just close up shop and try something new.
that's right.
And, Ram, I wanted to, kind of take a step back now and kind of go behind your motivations and learn more about you as a person, as an entrepreneur. And I wanted to know, did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or is it something that just came as you were working through your career?
It's funny because if I think about it, uh, two things happened to me. One is when I work in the big company environment. I mean, I was, at the vice president level, and hundreds of people reporting to me and so on. Sometimes I felt like I'm bored. I don't
Yeah,
have enough challenge. That's one aspect of, I got to do something where I'm challenged every day. I want to be excited to get up every morning and say, here's a challenge. That's one aspect of why I wanted to get into the startup in a world where it's more like, you are a David versus the Goliath, right? I mean, you
hmm,
are a small guy, and you're questioning the current way of doing things or whatever, and then there is a lot of naysayers out there saying, "Hey, it won't work," and that also gets me going. That's one thing. I mean, I can look at from the early days. I remember my father was, bless his heart, he's no longer there. He's passed on, and he was in the work for the government in India always and always. I remember him. Young days. He would tell me one day. He'd say, what? Don't work for a big company. Do your own. I know you can do it. There was also that thing in my probably inculcated in me.
Uh-huh.
I know not that he was pushing me, but it's just that probably was there that encouragement from my father, and saying, what? Not many fathers do that because they want their son,
Yeah.
they want their children to have a permanency in jobs and so on. So I said, what? I would rather look back when I'm 80 years old and say, I give it a try, I give it a shot. Whether I'm successful, wildly successful, failed, or whatever, doesn't matter. But at least I tried. And that's how my motivation works.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing that recently a friend talked to me about the same thing. It's like at the end of your career, at the end of everything, you want to live with no regrets. So you have to just do. And I think that's a very cool point that a lot of people will resonate with, who
Yes.
are listening.
Yes.
And so I wanted to know, you had mentioned that you left Silicon Valley because you wanted to make an impact in India. Could you like expand upon that? What did you want to do in India? Why did you move back? Because you had a great career going in the US.
I never worked in India. After I graduated from college in India, I just took off and went to the US. And before I know it, I was there for 30 plus years. And I always thought, um, you know, India has given me so much. The education is practically free in India. Okay.
Yeah.
And when I look at the college fees we pay for our kids in the U.S. and the education we get in India, it's just amazing. And then I saw, I got to do something back to the country where I was born, and that was always gnawing me in my back, on my back of my mind. And then I got involved with TaxiForSure as the seed investor. So when I started
Hmm.
working with the TaxiForSure co-founders, I started seeing things happening in India, which was pretty exciting in the transportation sector. And
Uh-huh.
I said, aha, I can come back and do something here and also make an impact because at the end of the day, what I also wanted to do was the impact that we make. I wanted to make an impact where, if you're a doctor, you can cure diseases or take care of your patients, and that's an impact you make for hundreds of people or thousands of people in a month. And as an entrepreneur, how do you make the biggest impact? And I saw, wow, I can make a biggest impact by building the what DriveU has done, where literally today we have over 6,000 drivers. They depend on DriveU for their income. And to
Uh-huh.
me, if one person makes that kind of money, they affect 4 or 5 other people in their family, their wife and their
Correct.
parents, the kids. And the impact I'll be making is for 30, 40,000 people in India. And that excited me. I said, what, I gotta do something.
Uh-huh.
And this is perfect way for me to give back to my country, where I was born. And I know I had a cushy job and everything. And it's at the end of the day, it doesn't matter in the long run. Happiness
Uh-huh.
matters. And my wife, encouraged me. She says, yes, go do it what you want to do. And that's how I did. I came back, and I am enjoying every minute of every day. I've been here for the last 4.5 years in India.
That's great to hear. It's always good to hear about, entrepreneurs coming back to India because I think during the 80s and 90s, we definitely had a talent glut. You see where they all moved to the US and there so many people are doing huge things in the US, like Satya Nadella,
Yes.
the CEOs of Microsoft. But now I feel a lot of that talent is coming back to India, and we'll expand upon that later. And I think that's a huge, huge thing for India where the potential will be here.
Yes.
And I wanted to, you mentioned taxi for sure. Could you, expand upon two things? What is TaxiForSure, and what led you to investing in them? What separated them from, the other transportation companies out there?
Yeah, so Taxi for Sure is a cab aggregator. Fundamentally, what their business model was, there are a lot of people with cabs, owners maybe have 10 cabs, 50 cabs, or individual cab owner. And
Uh-huh.
for them, they have already invested in buying a car, but they don't get enough demand to keep their car busy. So what Taxi for Sure said was, we will be the aggregator. We will create demand for you so that your cabs are always busy, and in return, you give us certain percent of your money you earn by using your cab. And
Hmm.
to me, what used to happen is whenever I used to come to India, I always used to get, of course, I come to the airport in Bangalore and I'll be besieged by, people with cabs, asking me for a crazy amount of money at nighttime when you're coming flying in at 2 o'clock in the morning. And no, and there was no transparency in pricing. It's a lot of haggling, and
Correct.
you don't know the cabs were dirty. And I said, you know what? Here the company, these two founders came in and said, Ram, we are trying to do this, and the light bulb went off for me where I said, aha, there is a problem that I am facing, and I'm sure like me, other people are facing, and nobody was doing this in India at that time using technology to bring in the demand and supply together, and in the process, create value and do that. So I said, you know what, I like that, guys. I think, and then they were actually very hard. Nobody was putting money in that. This is 2011, early 2012.
Yeah.
And there was not a whole lot of exciting, and there were not many people putting money. And I said, you know what? The second thing was I looked at these two founders. I liked them a lot, very smart kids. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to write the first check. So I wrote the first check back in late 2011, and the rest is history. Before you know it, lots of money came into this market. Uber entered the market, and
Yep.
and then this was um, just amazing. And then again, it's part of serendipitous because smartphone technology took off in India too. So, Android phones became extremely cheap so that people can afford a smartphone.
Yep.
With smartphone, now you have the ability to track the cab and be able to do everything on your phone, as opposed to before that, this was based online or phone support. So that also propelled an amazing growth for Taxi for Sure, as well as Ola, and that's how I got into this.
Okay, so you guys eventually did sell to Ola for $200 million, and that's a huge, huge buyout. And in theory, you're set. Living in India, you're very much set.
Yes.
What then drove you to say, "Hey, look, I need to do more," and start another huge venture in an area that you stayed in transportation, but nobody else was doing personal qualified drivers for your vehicle. So
Yes.
it's a huge undertaking because you're making a new market. What was that drive to say, hey, look, I still have much, much more left to do in India?
Yeah. So what happened is, just like the light bulb went off for me when I being a taxi for sure and the cabs and the problems that I was facing. We have a car at home, and we used to have a full-time driver.
Uh-huh.
So I kept looking at this guy, 80 to 90% of the time, he is not going anywhere. He's just sitting there waiting for my mom or my dad or one of us to go take him somewhere, right? So we were just
Yep.
wasting his time. I looked at him and said, his labor, what is his, talent is driving. What if I can, and then my neighbors have cars, and what if I can share my driver with four other neighbors? Just for example,
Yep.
if I can share it with four other neighbors, I'm sharing the driver across multiple car owners. And then
Uh-huh.
what happens is instead of me paying the driver 15,000 rupees, what if each of them paid 5,000 rupees or 7,000 rupees each? Five of them will get you 35,000 rupees. The driver makes more than 15,000, give him 20, 25,000. And then as a company, you create this, this marketplace, and then you can take the cut. So I said, this is like a no-brainer. And we looked around. I looked around, and we said, oh, nobody was doing what we were trying to do. I mean, there were some mom and pop little driver aggregation companies. They're still there in India right now, but
Uh-huh.
they didn't have the technology and the discipline that we had built at Taxi for Sure. So what I did was, okay, now we had the good exit and Taxi for Sure, and a lot of the key people that I knew at Taxi for Sure didn't want to go join Ola because because they're not going to be, now as part of the acquired company. So they were willing to go exit somewhere else, and I said, I just hired them all. One day, I interviewed like 8 of them and
Wow.
brought them on board. Within the next week, I said, look, guys, here's the money. Let's go figure out this in the next 2-3 months,
Uh-huh.
and let's go build it. And that's how the journey for DriveU started. Now, personally, with Taxi for Sure, I wasn't directly involved in this. I was an investor, whereas here I said I had other things that I wanted to accomplish, like I told you, to help out my fellow Indians to make more money and so on. I said now I have a channel that I can use to make those things happen, and that excited me also, and that made me stay back in India and do this.
Okay. And what I do want to expand upon here is that, starting DriveU, you also mentioned it at the start of the interview when you were talking about overcoming challenges and when to know when to keep going and when to stop. I'm sure with starting DriveU, there was, several challenges like educating the market, building trust for both sides, building trust for the drivers that, you know, I will give you the compensation you need to leave your current job, and building trust for the rider to say, hey, get into my car. I trust you to drive my car. Could you expand upon these challenges and probably some more that you faced?
Yeah, fundamentally, I think first of all, we had to build a name called DriveU as a brand that is, it's all about trust business. So
Uh-huh.
the car owner has to trust the DriveU has the capability to weed out the good drivers, bad drivers from the good drivers, and send them drivers that are good, right? That's one thing.
Yeah.
And on the other side, the drivers have to have trust that DriveU platform will allow me to make money and as much money as I would make or comfortable living I can make on the platform. Because at that time, our competition was Ola and Uber. They were giving oodles and oodles of incentives to these drivers. So what we did was we said on the driver side, we said, look, guys, we handpick drivers. We said, here are the 15, 20 drivers. And we trained them on the technology. We trained them on the etiquette, how to behave with people. We checked their backgrounds, and we told them that there are certain things they have to follow. They have to wear a uniform, and they have to do certain things. They have to be on
Uh-huh.
time. They cannot chew pan or smoke a cigarette or whatever. They got to be
Yeah.
clean. All that stuff we said, you got to do, and we said, and that's how we started on the supply side. On the demand side, obviously nobody knows about the name DriveU. We had just started this company, so we had to create the marketplace. We went obviously did a lot of marketing program talking about what DriveU can do. We did obviously the digital marketing through Google and Facebook, and we did radio ads, and we had
Okay.
billboards, all that stuff, so that it builds a brand. And then they say, look, and then obviously, when the two together come together, step by step, you slowly build the marketplace and the trust in the marketplace.
So, expanding there for the demand side, do you think it was the brand that, eventually said, I trust a driver that I don't know to come into my vehicle? Because especially when this was a new thing to the market, I can imagine being a rider and saying, I'm a bit hesitant. Like, I don't know this company DriveU that well. They're relatively new, but I'm trusting their certification to allow someone into my vehicle. It's a private space that, Ola, Uber, and Airbnbs of the world, they've kind of helped build that trust with anonymous people. But was it the brand or was it like other practices that you did? Was it word of mouth? You know, how did you really overcome there?
Yeah, first of all, we had the pedigree of being, we had done this before at TaxiForSure, the team, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's one thing was there. And the second thing is, there is a lot of word of mouth. I mean, each of us have a lot of connection in the marketplace. So we pushed hard. I mean, I have a very strong alumni network, and people had known about me and what I can do. I mean, there's a lot of link between Silicon Valley and Bangalore, for example, especially Valley and Bangalore, because people come and go, back and forth, and we did some awesome marketing to get where we want to be. I mean, our marketing was done such a way that people, started saying, this is something we can trust, and so on. And this is a journey. This is not a destination. You get one time and you're done. Every day, every morning, every day, every minute, we are, questioned how good you are, and then every day, when we have issues, we resolve how quickly we resolve the issue to make it amicable, and you build trust on based on that. For example, if sometimes say people say we don't like the driver, immediately we said, okay, we will refund your money. Sorry for
Yeah.
the service. Do the right way, right? I mean, this is how Starbucks. If you go talk to Starbucks, that's what they say is that the biggest thing you can do at Starbucks, every employee at Starbucks is make your customers super happy. If
Uh-huh.
you go back and say Starbucks, hey, this coffee is weak, they won't even question you. They'll throw it away and get you a fresh coffee, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so even though it may have been good or whatever, people they'll just say it's okay because we want to make this make happy, right? Make it so happy encounter so that next time you come back. Now you slowly build on this one after the other.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't happen overnight. It just takes time. And so what you have to do is there is a set of values we have in the company that percolates all the way through our company. These are the values we tell them. We put on the walls. This is our company value. Integrity is the highest value. Being honest with customers, customer centric. Focus on the customer, make them happy. And both our customers are both drivers and car owners.
Uh-huh.
So we have these, and then we have several these kind of values systems in the company that we push hard every day. And I'm so proud to say that after we're closing in on 2 million trips now, and
Wow.
yeah, we are growing fast. I mean, we did 1 million in by May, end of May, and now we are already closing in on 2 million. We are growing really fast, and in the 2 million, one odd million trips right now. I mean, we haven't had any, knock on wood, we haven't had any issue. I mean,
Uh-huh.
did we have small issues? Customers were unhappy? Absolutely. You can go to Play Store, you'll see reviews. Some people don't like it, blah, blah, blah. The price is too high. This driver was not this. So then what we do is we follow up. We follow up. Either the driver is wrong and we'll either, ask him to correct himself, or we will say, we'll suspend him or we'll fine him. So this is the process. It's not an overnight done deal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And
And that's how you
I
build the trust. Yeah.
definitely, and I wanted to expand on your point about culture. You and I talked about before this interview about, building culture and taking some of the best practices
Mhm,
from Silicon Valley to India.
mhm,
India, in the past, historically, before this, startup explosion has been very, uh, these are your hours, you finish these hours, you stay in, and
Yeah.
it kind of not a free thinking environment. Now,
Yes.
what are you doing to build this culture throughout your company? Like what is the culture that you are trying to build?
So we are definitely building the culture of, I'm building a culture from Silicon Valley. For example, I mean, it's a very open office. People can come in and go anytime, whenever they want. There is no issue. But as long as they get their job done, that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, everybody is equal. I want people to call me by my first name, Ram. I don't want it to be sir. I don't want a surname to it. Just call me Ram, right? I'm just a,
Uh-huh.
I don't want this. In India, there is this hierarchical system where you tell your boss sir all the time.
Yep.
I don't like that. Thirdly, you know, there are certain values which to me are extremely important that has to percolate through our system. We go through it in our all hands meeting. We go through it on our monthly executive staff meeting. I have five main value systems that I always push in any of the company that I'm involved in. I'm the CEO of. That, like
Uh-huh.
one I mentioned, the integrity is very important. Second thing is customer centric is very important.
Uh-huh.
Third is one of my favorite called Kaizen. It's a Japanese word for continuous improvement. What I want is, we are not perfect. You'll never be perfect, but you continuously improve, and that's called Kaizen. I
Okay.
tell people, keep on improving the product, keep on improving the process, keep on improving our customer service, and so on, and never stop improving. All right, we can always get better. Okay, that's the
Uh-huh.
reason. There is a thing called Net Promoter Score, which tells you how good the customers regard you as a company. We have one of the highest Net Promoter Score in the industry.
Wow.
Yeah, we have a. I mean, that's what I'm pretty proud about. The fourth one I call it as accountability. Everybody's
Uh-huh.
accountable. Means, I am accountable to people who report to me, and the people who report to me are accountable to me on different things. So it goes down the hierarchy. If people are accountable, means that they take it very seriously. And the last one I always focus on is teamwork. We have to work together as a team, and we cannot have, we may have differences in ideas, but at the end of the day, we are all working for one company, one direction. So we have to focus on that. So those are the kind of the five value system that I push a lot in the company. And I'm proud to say and then, the people will look at this and say, I'm also a big believer in saying, you can't go institutionalize these values unless you live by it. I
Uh-huh.
have I have to live by it every day, and then people will see me, and then it'll be the people around me who will start also have to live by it. So that's what we do in our company. Now, as far as other aspects of Silicon Valley culture we bring
Uh-huh.
in, I mean, which are kind of the fun aspect of it, is we have monthly beer bash at the end of every month.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes, we have the last Friday of the month, we have a beer bash in the company, and we have music and food and beer every year, every month. We do that. Sometimes
Wow.
we talk about the company. Other times we don't, just enjoy, relax and enjoy, get to know each other.
Yep.
Another one is from day one, our company, everybody is fed breakfast, lunch, dinner. As long as they are working there, the food is served to them, and that also builds a camaraderie and friendship amongst workers, right? Working
Yep.
people are working together. I mean, that costs money for a startup, but I said no, we got to do this, and so we have built some of these things in the company. And the last one, which I love a lot, is that we are a pet friendly company. We have pets running around in the office. I have my own two puppies that are indies that I take to office, a couple, 2 or 3 times a week, and other people bring their own dogs, and so on. There are dogs running around in the office. It's a fun place to work. There's the valley, like the valley we used to have that. So I bring that into the company.
Wow. Dogs, beer, and food. That sounds like a
And
very, very fun company to work for.
yeah, and believe it or not, I have people who left the company, and within a month or 3 months they come back. They said,
Yeah.
"Oh, because they've like, we miss drive you not being there." And I said, then we always say, when people decide to leave, I always say goodbye. I hope you'll find what you want, and if you don't, come back. We
Yeah.
always send people off, and that's again part of Silicon Valley. There is no, oh, you left us and blah blah blah, nothing like that. Come on over, that kind of thing. So
Yeah,
what we do.
and that's a huge competitive advantage, especially in India, because you will attract top talent by making, an environment where people actually want to be and want to succeed, as a part of.
Yes, and look if you look at it, you spend the majority of your day with your coworkers,
Yep.
and so then why not make that a happy place? So you become more productive and you're happier, and our attrition rate is very, very, very low. We have very low.
Wow.
It's probably less than 3-4% or something, which is very low in India. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, attrition rates are pretty high in India. People
Yeah.
10 to 15% of people leave on an average in India, sometimes more.
Hmm.
So we
Hmm.
have a very low attrition rate. Look at what I say is that this is the journey, and we have to have fun. The fun is not at the end when we become quote unquote successful. Either we have a great exit or whatever. The fun has to be along the way, and exit is one aspect of the success.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And Ram, I want to be respectful for your time. So I
No
just want
worries.
to, move into the concluding questions. And I want to know, what does the future hold for Ram and what does the future hold for DriveU? And what, further ambitions do you have that you want to help impact in India?
So I have lots of ideas for India. Let me say first about DriveU. I want DriveU be we will be we want to be the premier destination for anything about a car. That will be the
Uh-huh.
future for DriveU. Not just to driver service. It could be car maintenance, car roadside assistance, insurance, car detailing, car wash. All of that will be encompassing DriveU at some point, and we are working towards that. That's a
Okay.
and obviously, as a from an investor perspective, I want it to be a profitable company, generating good money, as well as potentially, if all goes well, we can do a public offering someday and that kind of thing for DriveU. That's what DriveU. Personally, what I look at is obviously my satisfaction is not just making DriveU successful, but also people within DriveU, which is our driver partners, our customers, and our employees to be happy. That's one thing clearly, because if they are happy, then we are successful. I have other things I want to do in India. Like I mentioned, I am a big uh, animal lover,
Uh-huh.
and I want to. India has a big problem with the stray dogs all over the place. I
Yep.
want. By the way, we at DriveU, we actually donate money for animal causes all the time. If there's a flood, this, that, we always, send money to these people, and the poor animals. I just have a very compassionate heart for these animals.
Uh-huh.
So I want to do something for Indian stray dog issues. I want to support and figure out a way to help. There are lots of amazing people in India who want to do that. So I want to join hands with them.
Okay.
That's one thing I want to do. India has a lot of challenges. Transportation is only one aspect of it. Cleanliness is another one, right? We have
Correct.
pretty bad lakes. Lakes are getting dirty, plastic problem, garbage problem. You name it, India has challenges, right?
Yep.
And more and more people are moving to the urban areas in the next 10 years. And
Yep.
it means more and more such challenges magnify, and that'll create its own opportunities in the future, I feel. So I feel that I'll probably be doing that over the next, I don't know, few years. And that's what my personal motivation is. And I think so that gives you an idea of where I want to be personally for DriveU as well as beyond DriveU.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to end on, one question that I will ask everybody who comes on the show
Hmm.
is that if you, at the end of your career, you've done everything you've wanted to do, you've
Hmm.
achieved everything you wanted to achieve, and you're sitting back and you're reflecting on your career and you're writing your autobiography,
Hmm.
what would you want that title of the autobiography to read?
I wanted to read something like my entrepreneurial journey in thought, in action, in love, and compassion.
Wow, that's a great title.
Oh, thank you.
So
I've been thinking about that. Yeah.
I definitely look forward to reading that. So as soon as it's published, please let me know.
We'll do at some point.
Thank you, Ram, so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time for making this all happen. I know, Arman. I know it's a pleasure to talk to you, get to know you, and hope to meet you too.
Yes, definitely, definitely very soon. Thank you again, Ram.
Take care.
You too.